like you have to live
God,
with
I
them
hope so.
Hey guys, it's Olivia and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, let me introduce myself. My name is Olivia. I'm 26 years old and I was diagnosed with autism at 24 years old, and that was the best day of my life. And here at my channel, I try to make videos bringing awareness to adults and females like me on the spectrum. If that sounds like something that would interest you, I would be so honored if you would subscribe and share my videos to hopefully bring even more awareness to females and adults on the spectrum. So in this week's video, I'm really excited to share that it is going to be my first ever collaboration video, which I'm really excited about. So in this video, I am interviewing a super special guest by the name of Orion Kelly. He's from Australia and he's a super cool, funny, awesome guy who has his own YouTube channel, which you should definitely check out because he talks a lot about, relationships and parenting while on the autism spectrum. So if you're a parent who is autistic, or a parent to an autistic child, or you're in a relationship with a neurodiverse person, then definitely check out his videos. I highly recommend, and they're just really informative and funny. In our chat today, Orion and I talk all things autism in a brutally blunt and honest way, which I think is awesome because autistic people love to be blunt and honest. And we also talk about kind of the differences between males and females on the spectrum, and we just go into a lot of funny, awesome details. So I hope you enjoy, and without further ado, let's jump over to the interview.
Hey, Olivia, it's great to see you again, and thank you for doing a video for me. So it's great to chat again, and great to see you again. I really appreciate it.
Oh yes. No, I loved our chat last time, and I just have to point out that we're both O names because I don't think we said that on your channel, but I like that we're both O names.
Yes. Does that mean anything when you point that out? I always wonder why. What does that mean? Does that mean what?
I don't know. I think, I don't know. It's just something cool that I think, because it's hard to find another O-named man anyways, or girl, like either one, because it seems like it's rare for names that, to start with an O. So I just had to point that out because I think it's cool, but that's literally all it means.
Okay, I was hoping for something a bit more in depth. That's cool. I appreciate that.
It's just cool. There's nothing more. It's just flat out cool.
In the comments, is your name start with an O? Put it in the comments.
Yes, put it in the comments if your name starts with an O. And it's funny because I always took pride, like growing up, that my name was very unique, Olivia. I didn't really meet anybody else with that name. And I remember I'd go, I don't know in Australia if they have this, but in the US anyways, you could go into souvenir shops and they'd have, mugs or keychains with your name on it. Yeah. And they never had Olivia when I was growing up, and I was always so sad. I'm like, they never had my name. Yeah. And now for the past 5 years, I think Olivia has been number one or in the top 3 baby names. And so I'm real upset actually about that.
Try finding a door sign with your name. Try finding Orion anywhere.
I've never known Orion.
An observation, an astronomy observation, whatever you bloody call it, the star thing, and they still won't have an Orion thing. It's it's the biggest constellation in the world. How do you not have an Orion sign?
Off that sidetrack, we get sidetracked. We're autistic. It just happens. But you were also diagnosed as an adult. So, when were you diagnosed? How long ago? How old were you? And how has your life changed since getting that diagnosis?
Yeah. So very similar to you, except you were in your 20s, I was in my 30s. Very similar to you, adulthood. And, that's where, we're differentiated by gender, but really that's about it. Because I kind of talk about it as in a lost generation of people who were autistic when they were born, because that's the thing. You can't acquire it or catch it. So we got through life. Somehow we got through life. And I look back on it now, and I say back then, it wasn't our parents' fault. And technically it wasn't really the medical profession's fault. It was where they were with knowledge and understanding. And the bottom line is they were looking for a profound or serious presentation of autism. And that's
the
who was
classic Rain
diagnosed.
Man signs.
Exactly. And so, yeah, and a white boy. And they certainly weren't trying to diagnose men or women, let alone girls. So it's come a long way. So, I was part of a lost generation like you, slipped through the cracks. And a lot of adults like us are getting to this point now, whether it's through marriage or kids or, a stressful life where their capacities are being overrun by the demands and stresses placed upon them. And they're realizing that they are autistic because they've finally reached that threshold. And it becomes a really critical turning point for adults. So for me, obviously, unlike yourself, it was really marriage and kids that brought out the traits and that brought, I mean, they were always there, but that brought it out that to a point where any idiot could see that I was not, the normal kind of dad or husband or dude. But of course, my life was riddled with these undiagnosed moments, like at school and in the workplace. So I've had nothing but bad experiences, with friends and school and workplaces because of who I was as a person. And they just assumed, and so did I, without a diagnosis, I was just a bad person. So yeah, my diagnosis, it came later in life as an adult, and clearly, like yourself, it's a life-changing thing. But for me, but for having kids, I may never have been given the diagnosis I deserved and have continued living life struggling, but just assuming I was just a bad person who struggles. So yeah. I'm grateful for that part. That sounds bizarre, but I'm grateful that my capacities were finally overrun by life.
Right. No, and I totally agree with everything you said. I mean, and I love that. I know you've used that term in your videos that are amazing, and everybody should go watch them, about the lost generation. And I thought that was so eloquently put, because you're absolutely right. And you're absolutely right too about, it's not our parents' fault. It's not the doctor's fault, because the knowledge just wasn't there. However, now, especially when it comes to girls, because when I started making, just like you, my YouTube videos, it was to bring more awareness to, female/adults on the spectrum, and you're, bringing awareness to adults. And, it's now, going back, my first goal when I was making the videos was to do that and help other adults like me and you figure ourselves out. But then too, maybe the most important reason to make the videos is to try to help younger and younger girls specifically, but boys too, get diagnosed so they don't have to go through all the struggles and traumas that we did growing up without the diagnosis. And so that's where I get frustrated with today's, doctors, because the knowledge is there and they need to figure out how to learn it and keep up with it, so that, that there's not another missed, generation, lost generation.
100%.
So yeah, totally agree with you there. The overrun, the capacity thing, that's absolutely true. And that's a fantastic way to put it, because a lot of people, neurotypical people, when you're trying to describe to them, what autism is like, and because oftentimes when I'm describing it, I feel like, even though they're not saying it to me, but I feel like they're well, just push through, get over it. And it's I really can't, we really can't, no matter what we're doing, we can't push through. It's I try, I want to, but it's impossible. So I love that too. And
it's horrible though, Olivia. That's a horrible thing for an autistic person to hear or feel. It's the equivalent, and it's the equivalent of saying, dude, get out of the wheelchair and just crawl up the stairs, mate. It's the equivalent. And no, I'm not being over the top. I've got a medically diagnosed neurodevelopmental disability. Don't tell me to just get over it. I can't get out of the wheelchair and suddenly walk up the stairs. So yeah, that really, it's a frustrating thing. And I agree with you. The medical profession, and even the therapy profession, the therapies that you can do, the allied health or whatever, they need to lift their game as well, because I think they're stuck in the dark ages too. And a lot of times they're teaching young girls how to act normal when before they diagnosis, they were already really good at that. Don't teach them how to act normal once they've got a diagnosis. Teach them how to be them.
Yeah, that's why we didn't get diagnosed.
Yeah, and it's Brene Brown, that psychologist lady, she talks about people think you belong when you're surrounded by people who who basically force you to not be yourself. But in fact, you truly belong when you are around people who force you to be yourself. Because that's the thing.
Oh, I like it.
People think being yourself is just something you do. Rubbish. Like, autistic people, non-autistic people. To be exactly. So belonging is being around people who force you to be yourself, not to not be yourself,
that.
to be yourself.
Going back to, going through life thinking you're a bad person, that was, like really hard to hear, but also like, oh my gosh, that's me. Because I was totally the same. I was like, I'm just a bad person. Like, I'm a bad friend. I'm a bad daughter, sister, like whatever it was. I'm just not a very good person. And I still struggle with that today at times. But I think that's something maybe, a lot of autistic people struggle with, especially that are undiagnosed, because we just don't understand why we're doing certain things or why we can't do certain things. Like, why can't I maintain a friendship? Why can't I just get myself to go out and go to this party or function or whatever and make the people happy? And it just makes you feel bad.
But that's the problem, right? Everything you said then had the word I in it. And here's the issue. Inclusion doesn't start with the person who has a disability. Inclusion starts with the people who aren't in any way disabled. So this is a thing. You can say to be inclusive, I might go, okay, to be inclusive, you're coming to my party to be inclusive, Olivia, I'm going to remind you to bring noise-cancelling headphones. Well, that's not being inclusive. Being inclusive is providing you with an area in the party that doesn't have noises or music or lights, or you can control things, or you have access to your own toilet or whatever. Like that. That's me being inclusive. And
or it's not pressuring you to going.
Exactly. I've failed in workplaces or with relationships, but it's like, well, I have, but so have they. And that's why they haven't worked and my wife has, right? There's a difference. And that's what's really important to me. I really think people need, and self-hatred is a big thing. I agree with you.
And you bring up like 2 points I actually wanted to ask you about, kind of, going over the male versus female perspective of autism. One is friends. Do you think, and obviously so many autistic people, if not all autistic people, struggle with friendships and relationships in general. And, I feel like as a girl, a lot of times it's almost worse in the sense of like, oh, but you're a girl, so like you're supposed to be going out and like hanging out and chatting and being small talky and like all that stuff that just doesn't come natural, nor do we like it. As a male, like, have you experienced those same things, or do you think it's a little better because sometimes males, it's just kind of, you don't have to do the small talk kind of crap?
What I struggle with, because everything that's about male friendships tends to be pretty masculine, and it's not like I'm not a guy, but there's something about me that I don't really define myself as in, like, I have to be a blokey bloke or tough or whatever. Though, do you know what I mean? Like, I like football. I like watching football.
That's okay.
I like sports. But then I also like going to the shops and walking around the mall. Do you know what I mean? Like, So from my point of view, I've never got the whole, I'm working, and then when the family are all home, I'm going to leave that, go to a man shed by myself, watch football and talk to mates and drink. And then on the weekend, once I'm out of my man shed, I'll go to the golf course and play golf with my mates. And then when I'm finished, I'll go to the pub and I'll have, I'll have food, and then I'll come home just in time for dinner. And then once dinner's over, she can get the kids to bed and I'll watch the footy. I mean, everything's got the in it. Going to the man cave, then I'm going to the golf course, then I'm going to go to the pub, going to get myself a pot and palm, and then I'm going to come home and watch the footy. Everything's there. So
That's really true.
So, from my point of view, I could never been able to relate to that. It's not like I don't want friends. I just don't see the need or feel a connection to the way we universally think men should have friends. I've always struggled with that. And I think the difference is I can get away with it, where you're right. I'm just a brooding, kind of cool dude. But you're like a rude, a
Antisocial
rude,
bitch.
cold bitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like
No,
the brooding, mysterious guy,
right.
Um,
Yeah.
but
No,
yeah,
you're
and
totally
you're just
right.
cold. So I
Yeah.
agree. I think that's really horrible. But I think that's probably because we have the same. In the end, it's the same reason. It's that you might not actually see the point or the need to
Yeah.
have these friendships or relationships.
Right. And I totally agree like with what you're saying, just like in the reverse. Like I'm not the typical girl where you're not the typical man. I'm not the typical girl. I don't want to be out shopping or small talking or going out to the beach or whatever it may be. I want to be home by myself with my fiance and watching. Well, I have to ask, when you say football, are you referring to soccer or rugby?
Okay. Yeah. So you go and get schooled now, girl. Okay.
Tell me, because I need to know.
Listen up, champ. I'm gonna get as hot under the collar as a Love on the Spectrum review here. So please just stand by. Stand by. Okay.
For the dumb American.
No, not dumb. No. But by the way, I watch the NFL on TV over here. I love the NFL, but it's not that. I'm not talking about.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
I'm not
Okay,
that kind of. I'm not that kind of football fan. I don't know why. There's a few teams I really dig. I can't pick one. I really like watching San Francisco, but they're really crap. And anyway, so the bottom line is, in Australia, yeah, there is rugby, but the predominant football code in Australia is Aussie rules. You might have heard of Aussie rules or AFL. It's basically the main code of football, like NFL or rugby. So I'm not talking about soccer. You, we kind of refer to soccer as soccer, although it's still classed, we still call it football to a certain extent. But you, we call our football codes football and soccer. And I like watching like Formula One and race cars. That's the thing, right?
F1, yes. Love F1.
Yeah. Like, so that's a masculine thing. That's why I can't define myself. Like I love watching NASCAR or the V8 in Australia, kind of equivalent to NASCAR. And I love watching F1 and these kind of things. But then I don't want to go in a man cave and talk about it for 2 hours with guys drinking beers. I want to watch it by myself, kind of thing. So yeah.
I'm the same. It's funny. I'm the same way, like where, obviously I was comparing where I'm not the typical girl and I watch sports and I play sports and whatever. But never, and it's like people who know me, they're like, you're the biggest football fan, NFL football fan I've ever met. But I have never, ever once gone to a Super Bowl party because there's no way I would ever go somewhere with multiple people there where I couldn't actually watch and listen to the game. Like other people go to like eat and watch the commercials, but I need to watch the game. So I don't like watching any game, regardless of what sport, or a race, F1 race, with other people, unless it's like my fiance or my dad who understand the sport. So I'm completely like you, like get out. I need to watch it by myself.
100%. Oh, I'm the same. I completely agree. I used to actually have a job. I was like the on-ground MC or host at the footy. So like going to an NFL game and seeing me on the big screens talking into a camera. And I did that in Western Australia for an AFL team called the Fremantle Dockers. And what's funny is I could stand on the ground with a microphone talking into a camera, having me on like, 2 massive big screens. Everyone could hear me. Everyone could see me. I could do that all day. But I couldn't go into the crowd and sit down.
Another good segue I wanted to say about working, where autistic people really struggle having, regular so-called jobs and holding employment or being hired. And as a woman, just stereotypically, a lot of times if we, find a husband that can support us, there's not as much pressure on us to have and keep a job. But for men, a lot of times it's, you have a lot more pressure. I'm not saying like, the man has to provide, but just in society, there's more pressure. And so like, how do you view that as an autistic man when, working is just as hard for you as it is for me, yet I can kind of more get away with it. So it's kind of the flip side of just the last argument that we were talking about.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you know what? I have this conversation with, I think you might call it a therapist. We call it a psychologist, my psychologist. I have this conversation a lot. Basically, I have this rhetorical complaint that I feel like I provide no meaningful contribution to the family because my wife, like your partner, my wife is a career woman, so she is the full-time worker. She provides basically the lion's share of the money for the house. And I'm all work from home and just contribute in other ways. And it weighs me down, and it's one of those things. I can get over some things, like I can start to believe I'm not a bad person, I'm autistic, though I haven't really got over that. But I can't ever get over this one, because society have placed this upon me, and I can't pass it. So yes, I'm married to a neurotypical woman who's career focused, has a successful career, works full time, and basically provides for the family. And that provides me with an ability to live a quality of life a lot of autistic people might not be able to, because they're forced into different circumstances. And society says, not, it's a gender thing as well, I agree. Society says, number one, what am I doing home with kids or whatever? And number two, why am I forcing my wife to do this? Now, I'm not forcing her, by the way. She loves her career. She loves what she does, and she would never want to give it up. And we're just lucky that she's able to do that. And I think when I hear this a bit, and it frustrates me when I hear autistic people talk about this idea that they could only ever find and marry another autistic person. I'm concerned for them, and I'm not concerned for them because I don't think that's their right. I'm concerned for them because I don't think they've even given it a second thought that it could be any other type of person. And the issue there is, so let's say my wife was autistic, and I was autistic, and we both were in the same circumstance where we both couldn't really hold down a job, couldn't really get through the kind of workplace as autistic people. So we both weren't really successfully employed or making money. We'd be really in a bad place with regards to consistency of money and our quality of life, which would affect us both, and it would make our quality of life basically go into the gutter. And the reverse is my story, and potentially your story. It's not like we aren't both very ambitious and want to create things and succeed and all that and contribute, but we are in a position where with a neurotypical partner, it's potentially something that we have a better opportunity to do. Ironically, we have a better opportunity to actually work hard and contribute because we have a neurotypical person where, ironically, if you were both autistic and you needed to both work hard and contribute, you couldn't, because you were both singling each other's abilities out.
I feel the same way with Alex, because he does pretty much everything. Obviously, he's making the money. He does the dishes. He'll do the laundry. I mean, he's like some Barbie Ken dream guy, because he'll do all this stuff that a lot of times I just physically and mentally cannot do. And like you said, I'm constantly battling a mean voice in my head that's saying you don't deserve him. He'd be so much better off without you, because he could find somebody that could maybe more balance and have an equal share of responsibilities. And I feel bad, and I'm always telling him oh, you're gonna start resenting me, and he's always I'm not gonna resent you, blah blah blah. Because for us, doing all the things that they do on a daily basis is hell on earth. Oh my, you can't even fathom it. And then so I often talk to him. It's I don't know how you go to work every day and how you do this every day. And he's it literally doesn't bug me at all. Which your wife's probably similar, but for us it's oh my gosh, how do you do this? And so I get that feeling of wow, they'd be better off without me.
And almost every time I talk to my psychologist, she always says, well, you know what, Orion, she signed up for this. Now, when she says it, I feel really bad for my wife. I feel like that's a mean thing to say, but she says, you know what? No, seriously, your wife signed up to be with you, even though you weren't diagnosed, and I'm assuming you met before you were diagnosed, even though you weren't diagnosed, your wife fell in love with you for you. So, okay, she didn't know you were autistic, but she definitely knew you were different. She definitely knew you were different to other guys. So she signed up for that. She signed up for marriage. She signed up for kids. She signed up for parenthood. She signed up for a career. Everything she's doing in life, she signed up for willingly. And okay, I think that in a way helps, but in a way that makes me feel worse, because I think, but that's true, right? That's the truth. And autistic people love the truth. But isn't that rude? If I say that to my wife, or you say that to your husband, well, listen, mate, you can get angry, you're working all day and cleaning the house and looking after a baby or looking after me. But But you signed up for this.
It's funny because Alex has said like those words, exact words to me, like, I've chosen to sign up for this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, why the hell would you do that? Like, are you crazy? And so you're right. They fell in love with us, and it's like, even though we have the mean voice in our head that's saying like, oh, you don't deserve them and they deserve better and blah blah blah, they think they don't deserve anything but you or but me, but it's very hard to grasp.
Do you start to do the radar with your partner? Sometimes I do the radar with my wife. And that was very autistic what you just did there. I think that seemed...
Yes.
The way you laughed, the way you just talked and laughed just then, that seemed pretty...
Okay.
Are you sure you're not... I think you're... My wife actually gets to the point now, she's like, stop calling me autistic.
Okay, you're gonna laugh so hard because obviously we shot a video for your channel last week, and then I went out of town to go. Alex was already back in Texas visiting his family, and then I went and joined him for the weekend. And you mentioned that in it, like when we were talking. I don't know if it made it into the video, but we had talked about it. And I said, yeah, I'm like that. It's like, you know, we have a complete radar where all of a sudden we're like, oh, whoa. They seem autistic.
Oh, that's in the video. Don't worry. That's in the video.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So absolutely. But so then the funniest thing, because I said, I don't know if Alex does it because he's just kind of like the most nonchalant guy, but you're just going to laugh. And I literally told him about you in this conversation where we started watching a new show called Reacher on Amazon. I think it's on Amazon. Yep. Have you seen it?
I've definitely heard of it.
Yeah, you've heard of it. Okay, I hadn't heard of it. I mean, I know like Jack Reacher, the movies with Tom Cruise, but
because that guy was in the show Titans. I've seen him in the show Titans, which was on.
Okay, got it. Yeah, this like big giant guy. Yeah. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, dang, he seems super autistic. But I didn't say anything. And then, I kid you not, Alex leans over, and he's like, does he or does he not seem like so autistic? And I was like, oh my gosh, you won't believe I had this conversation with Orion. And I said, I don't know if Alex does it, but I definitely do it. And like literally here he is, like 2 days after he had that conversation going, wow, he's super autistic. I'm going to look that up and see if he is.
It rubs off.
So yes.
And it's moved on. It's evolved for me. Now I'm putting it on my wife. I think you're autistic. It's like, so yeah, it's funny.
Oh my gosh. Now going back to what I was going to say about at the beginning of this like relationship talk, you were talking about like many autistic people will only date other autistic people. And when I had my video come out about like autism and relationships, many people asked me, oh, is Alex autistic too? And I was like, no, he is the opposite of autistic, and he's the opposite of me. And if he was anything like me, there's no way it would work because I'm a pain. I can't even stand to be around me. So it's like if I had another person like me, oh my gosh, it'd be terrible. Like I can't even imagine because like I said, I'm a pain. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with an autistic person dating another autistic person, but I do see where there could be challenges where maybe these people haven't thought about it. And again, like we're not giving relationship advice or whatever, but never exclude somebody or like, you know, because it's like being racist towards, you know, neurotypical people.
It is.
You know, never exclude anybody because you might miss your perfect match because you're like, oh, well, I'm autistic, I'm not going to date a neurotypical, but maybe your match is neurotypical. And, you know, it's like, obviously, I'm sure you're like this. It's like change is hard and like we have to do things a certain way. And Alex is so like nonchalant, go with the flow. So it's like if we were both like that, like, oh my gosh, like I think that, I mean, it would. No, I don't think like it would be so hard.
Yeah. Well, we married the same person pretty much, you and I. I mean, we really did. We really did. Describing your partner is describing my partner. And if anything, doesn't that provide some sort of blueprint of success? Because people watching this, again, it's their decision, it's their choice, and they might say, "Hey, but we've watched this video. You guys, this is a snapshot of us and our day, right? You know, when we watch these videos, I might think, well, who wouldn't want to be around you, right? But then I don't know what your challenges are during the day or during the night or what's going on in your life right now. No one does. So it's not about these little YouTube snapshots. It's about actually understanding the things that you as a person require, that, and not having any filters. Just and so for us, we know what's worked. We need that kind of a reverse personality, basically. But there's still things about, even though my wife is just like yours, is really laid back and chilled and stable, but she's also really quirky and funny and spontaneous and, obviously to me, sexy. So there's obviously things about them that are still like out there, but it's the overall package that just seems to fit. So it's not about one way or the other. Though in saying that, I mean, has there ever been a couple that's worked out on Love on the Spectrum? Ever? I don't think so. Again, don't get me started. There you have it,
folks. Proof right there.
But I mean, seriously, God knows why Love on the Spectrum can only put autistic people together, by the way. It's like they're like perpetuating the myth.
I always say that Alex is my best medicine, because he knows how to calm me down, and he knows what to do if I'm having a meltdown or a shutdown or just a bad day or whatever it is. And he knows how to make me laugh and feel better. And, if it was another autistic person, I mean, I'm not saying they wouldn't know how to do that, but if then I had to do that for them, I'm not sure I would be so good, because I'm not good with emotions or like comforting people, which is, classic autistic. We can have that kind of problem. So yeah, just another reason that Alex is so good, because he's yin and yang, and yeah, your wife too.
That's the contradiction, right? I can go a step further and I can say, well, I can tell you I have an autistic son, not a partner, but an autistic son, and we trigger each other more than anyone else, right? We can set each other. We're like kryptonite to each other, right? But that's where it's contradictory, because, okay, there's that, but then he would probably thank God in 20 years his dad's autistic, because of the things I've been able to advocate for him. I understand sometimes when he needs things. I can see things happening before they happen. So that's where we can tell other people to not put your blinkers on. But that's where sometimes my experiences tell people like you, don't put your blinkers on. Like the idea that I had a kid and he's autistic, it is like having an autistic partner. It just doesn't work. It's like fire and gasoline. But on the other side of it, for both of us, we couldn't have asked for a better situation, because who knows each other better and who can advocate for each other better. So
right.
You
can steer him away from things that weren't beneficial for you.
Exactly.
And yeah, just make his life easier than we had to, without knowing and without having an example for us.
So it is. It's not a perfect situation, but it is amazing. I guess that explains both sides of the coin. I think potentially, if I had a choice, I would probably rather have an autistic child than an autistic partner, because I think having a partner, having a teammate to help me raise the kids that isn't like me is really beneficial. But then having someone like me that's a child, I can really fight for them and advocate for them. So in a way, I kind of feel like that's a better result. And factually too, you have to remember that genetically the chances of an autistic person not having an autistic child are pretty astronomical. So, that's where it's kind of interesting. So I think there's a really interesting conversation there, the difference between an autistic partner and potentially an autistic child.
Very interesting. Yeah, maybe it will become a video soon.
It's definitely.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I don't have kids, but yeah, I can only imagine that situation where, yeah, of course I would want the neurotypical partner, because like you said, they're my teammate, and, a kid in theory, when they're 18, they or whatever age, they will eventually go and have, their own life and find their own partner. So it's not like you have to live with them.
I hope so.
We can only hope. And obviously that doesn't always happen, and that's okay. I mean, I'm living at home right now, but
champ.
You don't get an option. You have to leave.
That's right.
But yes. Okay, Orion. I know we've been chatting for a long time, but it's been an absolute pleasure. I love talking to you because we are so similar in so many ways. So there goes back to the autism, child and you, like, just being able to, like, bounce things off of each other and be like, yes, like, I get that. So anyways, thank you so much again. And I hope that we have another video like this in the future.
It's amazing as always. I'm a massive fan. Love your work, and we do click and connect, and let's keep that happening. So thank you so much.
Oh yes, absolutely. Thanks again. Okay guys, that is it for today's video. A huge thank you to Orion for being my very first collaboration video. And if you guys want more of me and Orion, head over to his channel because there's actually like a part 1 to this video on his channel where it's still us talking but more about female stuff. So definitely go check that out and give him some love over there because he deserves it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed and I will see you soon.